That one friend that's always cold.
I'm cold.
You're always cold. But I'll be damned if you're not my friend.
Gods and evil queens, assassins and enforcers, gods and demons. Confronting every great hero is a great villain. This is a tribute to the most vile and villainous. This is Most Wanted. Can often only be raised to a place of greatness if they're surrounded and opposed by great villains. And there's no sort of hero that this applies to stronger than the superhero. Superheroes are so much more than the sum of their powers and adventures, their ideas. Every superhero exists for a reason, to send a message, to fight for something. And that's why it's important that they face compelling and equally representative villains. There must be a ruthless Lex Luthor to fight the symbol of peace, Superman. There must be an oppressive Red Skull to clash with the Soldier of Freedom, Captain America. And there must be a callous Venom to try and besmirch the purity of heart carried by Spider-Man. With all of that in mind, let's talk about The Flash. Young Barry Allen's life was changed forever when his mother was murdered and his father was falsely arrested for it. From that day on, Barry wished to return to that day and stop his disaster from happening. It isn't until a lab accident bestowed him with super speed that he learned that his only and best option is to keep moving forward, to leave the past in the past. With that in mind, surely the Flash's antithesis would be someone who can't escape their past. Someone fixated with the status quo, and perhaps a fascination with freezing someone in place. Perhaps with some kind of cold gun rolling.
Sorry to interrupt your festivities, but if you all stay calm, we'll be gone as soon as my friends here come back from the cashier's booths.
Debuting in 1957, Captain Cold was once a face among many. One of the several costumed freaks the Flash ran circles around in his earliest years. Armed with his titular cold gun, Captain Cold could freeze people in their tracks with just an itch of his trigger finger. It wasn't until Captain Cold got fed up with the cycle of prison and escape that he decided it was time to step it up, leading his comrades in what was the first formation of the Rogues. Separate, they were a bunch of slack-jawed crooks and thugs, but together, they were finally capable of doing what big-time baddies like Gorilla Grodd and the Reverse Flash had done before. And we have the vision and leadership of Captain Cold to thank for it. But to truly understand what a powerful and compelling leader Captain Cold is, in addition to a great nemesis to the Flash, we need to rewind a little bit to his origins. Leonard Snart grew up under the roof of his father, Louis, a drunk and a criminal who would terrorize and abuse Leonard and his younger sister, Lisa, regularly. The only relief Leonard had from his nightmarish life came in the form of his grandfather, who would take Leonard and Lisa on escapist drives in his ice truck. Leonard admired his grandfather, and by sheer association, grew to be endeared by ice and the cold. But when their grandfather passed away, Leonard and Lisa knew they could only rely on one another. Leonard, a disadvantaged youth from the start, turned to crime in his formative years. Once a bank robber, he was inspired by the sudden arrival of the Flash, the superhero taking the city by storm. And where most thieves looked at the Flash with fear, Snart was inspired. Snart knew that the key to stopping the Flash was halting his speed. His answer came in the form of the Cold Gun, which could slow the molecules of its targets to a frosty halt. And Captain Cold was born. Very quickly, you can draw similarities between Captain Cold and the Flash. Neither had a cheery childhood, and while Barry's father was accused of a crime he didn't commit, and was absent by a force out of his control, Snart was damned by the presence and sins of his own father, whose toxic words and beatings would haunt him for the rest of his years. While the Flash was inspired by his past to be a force of good, Snart lives in a limbo of self-destructive behavior. His upbringing, or lack thereof, has locked him into a self-fulfilling life of crime. And while the Flash wants to help people and move forward as fast as he can, Snart finds himself frozen in his father's footsteps, to live as the only example he ever had, that of a criminal. But I think the biggest similarity these two share is a bit surprising. The Flash is an embodiment of a guardian angel. He can save lives before people even realize they're in danger. He can never think of only himself. He wants to free his father, he wants to save his mother, he wants to make the best life possible for his friends, no matter what it costs him. and he does so under the guise of a flash of red and yellow asking for no thanks. Strange as it may sound, you could say something very similar about Captain Cold. Captain Cold swore an oath he'd be a criminal for life, but he'd never be the same monster as his father. Never would he neglect a loved one, and that duty would include his little sister, Lisa, and in his own way, the other rogues. Lisa would eventually join the rogues as the Golden Glider, and while he'd never actively admit it, he formed some genuine kinships with his fellow supervillains. For someone named Captain Cold, he harbors at least a bit of warmth at his core, though he expresses it in a manner that's perhaps unconventional. If you don't believe me, you can ask Mirror Master, who'd Snart brutally beat when his addiction to cocaine gets out of control. It shouldn't be surprising that someone with such a damaging father would have no tact and discipline himself, but to say that it wasn't for his own good wouldn't be inaccurate. Plus, most positively, Captain Cold forbids his followers from harming women and children. His heists have to be clean of blood as possible. He knows what it's like to be a scared child and wouldn't wish it on anyone else. But that does not mean he's a pushover by any means. As a matter of fact, God help you if you lay a finger on his family. Captain Cold is a man of responsibility, and he feels the danger his loved ones are thrown in at his core. Imagine his grief when he found out his sister had been killed by our new rookie supervillain. The sister that he swore to protect since they were young and when they only had each other, and the moment he wasn't looking, her life was stolen. An enraged Captain Cold hunted down the assailant, a supervillain called Chillblaine, and you can bet anything he didn't spare him a moment of pain. Chillblaine found his final resting place on a bed of icicles, but none of it spared Leonard the anguish he felt for letting his sister die. Luckily, comic book character death is about as permanent as chickenpox, and Lisa would come back to be endangered and give Captain Cold a reason to go on a good old-fashioned revenge rampage time and time again. Hell, the Injustice universe puts his devotion to the real test. Here, Lisa was executed by the more oppressive Superman of this world's anti-criminal regime. Captain Cold joined forces with Gorilla Grodd here, only for motive of avenging his sister. This man cares so deeply for his family that he'd spit in Wonder Woman's face, holding only his cold gun. His own safety means nothing to him, only the honor among thieves that he stakes his life on. It's something of a juxtaposition. Despite feeling cursed to live the same life of crime as his father, Leonard makes strives to distance himself from his own upbringing. And what's really sad is that Lewis hasn't disappeared from Leonard's life. In fact, he haunts him from time to time. Lewis knows precisely the chokehold he has on Leonard, and isn't afraid to take advantage. For this, let's scoot over to the Arrowverse, where Snart has his first really great TV adaptation, played by the incredible Wentworth Miller. Over his saga of episodes in both The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, Snart develops into one of the finest characters I've had the pleasure of surveying. He's smooth, he's smart, he's everything Captain Cold should be. A paragon of shrewd confidence. It's a bit shocking to see him at the mercy of his father in one episode, who has implanted a bomb inside Lisa, which he'll detonate should Leonard not follow his every whim. Leonard is desperate enough to rely on help from the Flash, who helps free Lisa, giving Leonard the chance to finally free himself of his father. It's sort of a beautiful moment, gruesome as it is, the very demon and cause of all of Leonard's insecurities and scars, and most surprising of it all, he has his nemesis, the Flash, to thank for it. And maybe it's not so surprising. At his core, I think Barry would much rather be friends with Snart than enemies, but Snart is set in his ways. There's realities where they're really tight and even work together happily. He's almost more Catwoman to Flash than Joker. The question is, how badly does Snart want to be better? Does he think there's a chance for him that in another life he could be a force for good? Is his life sentenced to crime out of duty or desire? I think ultimately, Captain Cold is a man of self-devouring demons. He wants to prove he can live as a great criminal, but one better than his father. He doesn't want world domination or even to kill his enemy. He's ingrained in a lifestyle. He can't just turn over a new leaf and leave Lisa and the other rogues to fend for themselves. He's practically a criminal out of responsibility. Every bit Barry Allen feels his responsibility to fight crime is the Flash. There's something noble about his pursuits of riches and authority, and such a quality in someone that can, for all intents and purposes, be considered a great superhero's archenemy is hard to find. Which is why Captain Cold is such a treasure.